Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Gridiron Grind with Andrew and Lance. This episode is about some contracts that got signed, whether it was extensions or a new contract for a quarterback, and we have some speculation to look into at the end of this episode. That's so much fun to talk about, some things that probably won't happen, but it'd be so much fun if it did. But the first thing we want to get to is the huge money that the Bengals paid to receivers, which now ties up three players, tying up, I want to say it's over half of their cap, or it's something crazy. Jamar Chase gets his huge extension. T. Higgins gets his huge extension. And I had the numbers pulled up here. Jamar Chase gets 4 years, $161 million. He just had to be paid as the highest non-quarterback in the whole league. He had to. He just had to get a little bit more than Myles Garrett and much more than Justin Jefferson, which that contract now looks like a deal, which is awesome. And then T. Higgins got his money, 4 years, $115 million. His, though, is interesting because I believe it's only like 30 million guaranteed, which is odd that he accepted that. But that's a lot of money to pay two guys. I think Jamar Chase is getting like 40 and a half million per year, and then T. Higgins is getting like 28. This is a
Yeah,
salary cap league, and I don't know how that's going to work. I just don't get it. And they have nobody on defense. Um, they're trying to keep Trey Hendrickson, but they extend him too. That's even no, that's less the money they have to fix their defense and their O-line. So I mean, I get it. Those two are great players, but I would have just gone Jamar Chase, given him his 40 and a half. Okay, that's what it takes to keep him, and then no on T Higgins because you can draft another really good receiver.
yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at the details because I was trying to remember T. Higgins' contract. Because if I remember right, I think it's the first 2 years are fully guaranteed, and after that, it's kind of like a will see. Am I remembering that
Something
right
like
for T.
that.
Higgins?
Something like that. Yeah.
The I know the contract numbers have been a little fuzzy on T. Higgins' side, and whereas Jamar
Hmm.
Chase is more straightforward of it's his. I mean, really, for the
Hmm.
most part, the majority of his contract is
Hmm.
going to be tied to Jamar Chase, and they are tied at the hip.
Yep.
Um, the part I just keep coming back to in my mind is I really don't understand what the Bengals are doing. I know
Hmm.
that it's hard. I know it's hard when you have two personalities in your or two really, really competitive, excellent receivers to get them
Hmm.
both signed to deals when they're being signed at the same time. But I don't understand what took them so long. Like if this
Yeah.
is where you knew you were going to be,
Do it a
why
couple
did you
years ago.
wait?
Hmm.
Why did you wait? I mean,
Yep.
I I really don't understand why people have this mindset. I'm going to wait and see, and then the value is going to get better.
Keeps going up and up and up. Hmm.
Like, are you expecting a recession? Are you expecting the economy to tank, and
Hmm.
therefore the market for free agents is going to be different? Which, like, if you're planning on that, why are you the owner in the first place? Because you're
Right.
not in it to win it; you're in it to stay, and that's not really. It
Hmm.
just felt like a very Jerry Jones esque type situation, the way
That's
that was
fair.
handled. And
Yeah.
I know that the Bengals are not operating the same way that other teams are. I know that the Bengals have a lot harder of a situation because Mike Brown is not as wealthy as these other owners are, where he has a
Hmm.
plethora of businesses. Because the way I understand it, and you correct me if you've heard anything else different, Andrew, but the key to be able to get more favorable contracts for a team is you give large a cash signing up front, and then you
Hmm.
backload the numbers later on in the contract so you can make it work. Because the player
Basically, yeah.
gets what
Bigger signing bonus. Yeah.
they want up
Hmm.
front, which is to get paid,
Hmm.
but you can work with them to kind of space it out to make it manageable for your team. But
Yeah.
again, you have to have the cash to be able to put up front because the way it works is as soon as they sign the contract, that money, whatever the signing bonus is, goes straight to them. They don't have to wait
Yeah.
for it.
I think it goes into like an escrow account or something. Like they have
Yeah,
to show we have this money to give you.
yeah,
Just in, I think the reason is, I think I've heard someone say that just in case the NFL tanks and it gets like destroyed and canceled the next year, hey, I signed my contract, I want my money. So your money is actually in this escrow account. It's yours
Mhm.
if the NFL decides to cancel the rest of the forever. So yeah, they have to have that money up front, give it to them. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
So, I mean, maybe that's part of the problem, but
Hmm.
it's just tough in my head because if you sign Jamar Chase last year, you're saving at
You'd
least
probably,
5 million a year, at
probably,
least, I would
hmm
think. And if you signed Higgins last year, you're probably signing him for 23 million. So that's
hmm
$5 million that you're not worried about right now every year. Like that's not the thing.
10,
We're not
that's
talking
10
about
million
one
total.
season.
That's a solid starter for you somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, that's so much cash. And
Hmm.
I know it's tough. I know they just paid Joe Burrow too. It just feels like
Yeah,
my guess is this is my hunch, Andrew. I don't think they were intending to keep both, but things just
I
kept
agree.
going this way where they were way too impressed by
Hmm.
both that they're like, our hands are tied. We have
Hmm.
to keep both. But that is such a bad strategy. It just
Yep.
it backs you into like, and I'm going to sound like an Eagles homer when I say this. So I'm throwing it out there right now. But the Eagles last offseason knew that they needed to get both Devontae Smith and AJ Brown
Hmm.
signed because they knew that they
This
needed to
was going
get
to happen.
that
Hmm.
Devontae Smith was going to need to get signed first because he was coming up in his contract. And then as a
Hmm.
result, AJ Brown would need to get paid a little more because he is definitely better than Devontae Smith. Like they're not on the same level. They're both phenomenal receivers. So glad we have them both.
Hmm.
But it's definitely 1A, 1B. I think that
Yep.
most people would agree with you, 1A, 1B. So they got in front of it. They got in
Hmm.
front of it, and they're out in front, and they worked it out. Um, but
Eagles have always
Cincy on the
done
other
that. They've
hand,
always paid players early, which is the way to do it. Don't let their
yeah,
contract be on the last year when it's the most expensive time to pay them. No, no, no. Sign them to an extension early when the
yeah,
numbers are still favorable because it's just going to keep increasing, especially if you have superstar talent. Now, if you have mediocre talent, doesn't matter as much. But if you have top five player on your team, get that contract done early. Because if you don't, Jamar Chase is going to happen with $40.5 million, which, he's one of the top two receivers. Him and Jefferson, you can say
mhm,
Chase is one. I wouldn't argue with you. You said Jefferson's one. I wouldn't argue with you. They're both like right there. Whoever gets signed after the other one is going to make more money. That's just how
yeah,
it works in this league. And I was so glad that Jefferson got paid first because now his like $35 million deal looks like a deal compared to 40 and a half every year. Whenever
yeah,
the level isn't huge jump. It's maybe just a little jump, or this way even. It's based on the same level, and you're getting $5 million discount since the Vikings paid him when they paid him.
yeah. I mean, it really is amazing, man. The
Hmm.
difference in GMs between teams
Yep.
is substantial. I mean, it really
Hmm.
is. It is crazy how. And I understand too. It's tough in the NFL because, or really, let me clarify. For any major sport, it's tough to be a
Hmm.
GM because if you're great at scouting and you really know how to get good talent, because for example, let me give some flowers to the Bengals in the sense they've done pretty well at drafting and finding
They
players
have
themselves. They found T.
absolutely.
Higgins, they found Jamar Chase,
Hmm.
they found Joe Burrow. I mean, it wasn't even a shoe in for Joe Burrow. I mean, I get it. I understand.
I
Like it's worked out well. It was a high pick,
Yeah.
but
It was number one overall pick. I can't give him too much credit for that one.
I mean, look at other teams. I'm just saying, look at other teams that have been in the
Sure.
same spot and it happens all the time. Teams overthink it and they don't
Hmm.
go for it because they get nervous. They think about the numbers. I mean, I understand. I do get it. I'm just saying that Trey Hendrickson is another person that's worked
Yep.
out well for him.
Very well.
Um, they've Chase Brown. I mean, I can't believe I haven't even talked about Chase Brown yet, but what a
I
find
love
he
that
has
guy.
turned into.
I love that guy. I
Uh,
drafted him in so many fantasy last year because I had belief in him, and I turned out right on that one. Even though they had Zach Moss, who they just signed on the free as a free agent,
yeah.
I was like, no, it's Chase Brown season, baby, and it happened. Yeah, I love Chase Brown.
Hey,
He's awesome.
if you stuck faithful to the end, you were
Yep.
rewarded. There was like
Hmm.
an 8 week purgatory period
Yep.
where
It
it was
was when
real
Zach
tempted to
Moss was
just
getting.
release him.
Yeah, I remember. I remember in my other podcast that I have, I was talking up, I know I'm a Chase Brown guy. And then beginning of the year, Zach Moss got all the touches. I said, hey, I was wrong. I own up to it. This isn't Chase Brown team, it's Zach Moss's team. Then Moss got hurt. And I was like, oh. And then Chase Brown never gave it back. And I was like, hey, I was right
Yep.
after all, kind of.
Yep. Yeah. Well, in the end, right? It worked out the way you thought it would in the end. Just didn't quite go like you
Hmm.
didn't get there the way you thought you would.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but I apologize for taking this off on a tangent. I'm
Hey, that's what
interested
we
to see how
do.
this works.
That's what we do.
It, I'm interested to see how this works because to me, I'm hesitant. I don't know. I don't
Mhm.
like the way that this team is built right now. I don't
I
feel like,
agree. And there's a lot of these major sports channels, sports casters and everything putting the Bengals as a top 10 team. I'm thinking, where have they improved? It's the same team as last year, where their defense is going to get run over because there's nobody back there. They have a different defensive coordinator, so maybe
yeah.
that helps. And
Mhm.
they have draft picks. Maybe they'll hit on these draft picks because they have to, because they have no money. Maybe. But as constructed right now, I do not see this team as a top 10 team. They have a top five offense. They're going to put up points. They're going to be a
Mhm.
fantasy football dream because, hey, Jamar Chase is going to have to score 4 touchdowns every game. Joe Burrow's going to have to throw 6 touchdowns every game in order for them to even have a chance of winning because our defense is going to give up 30 or 40 points.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun to watch, but are they going to win many games this way? I don't know. They are in a tough division.
Hmm.
AFC in itself is tough. They have to go against the Bills, Chiefs, Ravens, all these teams, all these super squad teams that they got to go up against, and they don't have a defense. You cannot win in this league without a defense. They have one good player, and they were tempted to trade him, Trey Hendrickson, but I think they decided they're going to try to extend him. Awesome, great. He's a good player. He's a little older though. Who else do you got? They got nobody else.
I
So they
mean,
have to draft like four
on defense,
starters.
right? You mean defense?
Yes, on
Defense, they
defense.
have nobody. Okay.
They have to draft like 4 starters on defense in order for that defense to compete. And their O line got worse too because I think they lost their left guard Kappa or something like that. So I mean, it's not good. I don't see how people think this is a top 10 team. It's only because Joe Burrow is awesome, which he is. He's awesome. He to me might be the best quarterback in the league. He's in that conversation. I still give it to Mahomes, but Joe
Mhm.
Burrow is so good. He's on that level of this guy could be number one, but he has to be a superhero every single game because his defense just lets him down. And a total Bengals thing that happens every year is they're going to go off to a slow start. They always do. They're always like 0 and 3, digging themselves
Yeah.
out of a hole and always coming a little short to either win a division or make the playoffs. It happens every single year. So you can book it. Like last year, they played the Patriots week 1. The Patriots, who were garbage last year, and the Patriots beat them. It it's insane. I don't get how what they're doing. I don't get how they're rated a top 10 team. Um, that defense is going to be run over again unless they get some miracle hits in the draft.
This is interesting. It's making me want to look at their schedule next year.
Hmm. I think they probably got third place in their division. Yes, they got third
Oh,
place.
they got third place, but I'm looking at conferences or the divisions they
Hmm.
play in. This
Hmm.
team plays the NFC North.
Hmm.
Yikes. That
Hmm.
is just not that is not a great draw.
Yeah.
I don't
And
like that at
everyone's
all.
saying that the Vikings schedule is hard, which it's tough, but our toughest games are all at home.
Mhm.
We have the
That's a
Ravens
huge
at
factor.
home. We have the
Good
Bengals
call
at
out there.
home. Yes. Of course, we go on the road against the Lions, Packers, Bears. That happens every year. But we look like we had a tough schedule last year. We won 14 games. Anyway, but yeah, we have
Now,
our toughest games at home.
well, I mean, here's some positives for them. They play the
Hmm.
AFC East, which that's a great division to play next year. I mean, overall, right? Like if we're looking at like who you want
Hmm.
to play, the only better draw would be the AFC South, probably. And I think outside of
Hmm.
AFC, that so they got a relatively easy division. That Buffalo game, which is in New York, ugh,
Hmm.
I think that's probably going to be a loss. You got to play
And
Baltimore.
when do they play the Dolphins? If they play the Dolphins at the beginning of the year, that's a tough game. If it's in the
Good
winter,
point. Good point.
it's a easy game. So when do they
Good
play?
point.
That's going to be the key part there.
But yeah, man, that's going to be brutal. I
Hmm. Yep.
the the Bengals are so interesting because they the way that Taylor gets off to slow starts reminds me so much of Doug Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's parts about his game that I like, but he always seems to like it seems like it takes forever for him to prime the pump. So
Hmm.
I'm curious what the issue is. Is it are their
Hmm.
starters not playing enough in the preseason? Because I know that with Joe Burrow's injury history, maybe you're gun shy. T.
Hmm.
Higgins, there's an injury history there. Are you gun shy with them? Do they need this extra time to ramp up and get ready for the season and they're
Yep.
not getting it because of concern for injury?
Hmm. And
There's a pattern
contract.
here.
Because last year, Jamar
That's another
Chase
good point.
didn't
That's a
pr
good
didn't
point.
practice and he almost didn't
Same thing for
play.
Higgins.
That was the
Yeah.
main reason why I passed on him in fantasy. Because I thought, hey, he's going to miss the first two games, which he didn't, and he was
Mm-mm.
phenomenal. But there was speculation that he could sit out one or two games because of his contract.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, you don't have chemistry right away. And it just there's always something like yeah, there's always something in the offseason, right during training camp that the Bengals just something happens, injury, dispute, don't practice well. I don't know what it is, but they always start on a slow start. If they can go like 3-1 or 4-2, they'll probably be a playoff team because they get momentum during the second half of the year. That's the way they're built. But if they go
Well,
out 1-4, it's a problem.
I mean, but that Patriots game, it was a 10-16 loss. I forgot about that. Their
Yep.
offense was horrific that game.
Yep. Hmm.
Uh, but it's hard because you factor into that equation of the contracts and stuff. How much did that factor into their ability
Hmm.
to not succeed? Right?
Yep.
Because if that first game is
A
what
win,
what
they're in the
was,
playoffs.
and that's a fair point.
Hmm.
Yeah, it kind of just feels like with the Patriot or with the Bengals right now, they're just there. They're there. And
Hmm.
you can't ignore them, but you also can't count on them to be amazing. But yeah, man, Joe
Hmm.
Burrow was 21 of 29, only 164 yards. Chase was 6 for 62. These are not
Hmm.
great numbers. Moss was okay. He got 5 yards a carry, but only 44 yards. So that kind of makes me wonder if maybe did they not stick to the run game enough? Possibly. I mean, we're looking at
Yep.
hindsight here, but yeah, T. Higgins wasn't in that game. So that's another thing to keep in mind as far as for the issue. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, man, but they gave up 3.5 sacks or three sacks that game. The Bengals offense did. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that
And the
played a
Patriots
role. And
defense wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great last year.
oh, and another thing I forgot was the Bengals had two fumbles.
Mm.
So yeah, but it's interesting, man. It'll be something to follow this year. I'm not out on the Bengals. They're not
Right.
a top 10 team for me. They're not a
Yeah.
top
I'm
10
I'm
team
the
right
same.
now.
They're a borderline playoff team. They could
Yeah.
sneak in the wild card, and if they get in the wild card, they're going to be a tough out because they'll score with anybody. But I can't put them top 10. There's too many good teams
Hmm.
right now.
No.
I like the Broncos more than them. I kind of like the Chargers more than them, even though it's a similar level, just different scenario. It's close. Chargers and Bengals are close for me, but I like the Broncos more.
Yeah, right now my chips are all in on the Broncos.
I like
I
what they did. I
well,
can't ignore them.
there's so much I like about what they did, Andrew.
Hmm. I
Bo
agree.
Nix to me seems to be the real deal. Like I don't mean like
Hmm.
he's an outstanding quarterback, but he just feels like he has legitimate potential.
Hmm.
I'm not a big Sean Payton guy, but I feel like he coached him really well in getting
He
him up
did.
into a point to be competent
Yeah.
and ready and take advantage of the offense. They've got to get a better running back. I think that's their biggest issue right now is they don't have a
Oh
strong
yeah.
running game.
Oh yeah. They have a
Um,
couple young guys that are interesting, but they don't have that guy. Yeah.
no, they don't have the bell cow.
Omarion
And
Hampton. Omarion Hampton could be there at 21 for him. Just saying.
could be. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but
Mhm.
I'm definitely really interested to see how they do next year.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah,
really
they
excited for
they
that
did
team.
so many good things. Yeah, Bo Nix, he has kind of like what you're talking with McCarthy. He has that it factor, that leadership, that competitiveness that I'm going to go win this game. Does he have all the talent passing in the world? Maybe not. But when you have that it factor and you're that competitive and you're that focused and well coached, like you touched on, you can have success. So, I mean,
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of his passing prowess because
Yes. No, that's fair.
he's average in that, but he's such a fighter that he will win you games because of that. And Sean Payton knows what he's doing. So, yeah, and now they have a tight end over the middle and Evan Ingram. They just got to get a stud receiver. If they can find a stud receiver and, like you said, a running back, you better watch out for that team because their
Yeah.
defense is already top three
Yeah. I mean,
and they got better.
they're going to be fun to watch next year. You got Dre
Hmm.
Greenlaw. Oh, I forgot about Dre Greenlaw.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, well, I don't want to dig too
Hmm.
much into it, Andrew. I'm so excited to
Yeah.
get to after the draft, digging into these teams and
Oh,
who's going to be
that's gonna be
successful.
so
And
fun. And when the
uh,
schedule is
I
actually released, we
oh,
can see who
that's
plays
gonna be
when.
such a great day.
Hmm.
Seriously, one of my favorite days of the year.
Because
Looking at the
that's when you know
schedule.
football is almost right here. Football's
Yeah.
here at that time because that's when rookie mini camps start. That's when
Hmm.
mini camps start after that, and then a little break, and then training camp. Woo, boy, that's when it gets fun.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to cover on the Bengals front. Again, I just want to put
Yeah,
a
we talked about
disclaimer out
30 minutes
there.
on them, so
I don't want, I just want to put a disclaimer. I don't hate the Bengals. I don't hate them.
yeah,
I just
I'm a
concerned,
fan
concerned.
of Joe Burrow. I've been a fan of Joe Burrow ever since he destroyed my Sooners easily in the college football playoff because he is just so good. I'm a fan of Joe Burrow, and I'm a fan of Jamar Chase and Chase Brown and all those
Yeah.
guys. Is yeah, I just don't know what they're doing. I don't
Yeah.
agree with their moves.
Yeah. When we talk about quarterbacks, can we shift to
Yes, I want you to. I've been waiting for this.
Andrew? I have to eat my words. Last week I got on here and foolishly said that I was proud of the Giants for potentially turning the corner and being smart. And then they go and make a really dumb move and sign Russell Wilson to a 1 year deal to be their starter.
Hmm.
What are they doing? I don't. I thought Jameis Winston was such a solid signing. I loved it. I thought,
Yep.
but this goes back to we talked about this before with the Giants. They kept a coach and GM that they shouldn't have kept.
Hmm.
They held on
Yep.
to him, and so now
I
they're in
do
this.
like their coach. I think he's
Yeah,
just wrong
Dable's
place, wrong time.
agreed.
But yeah, he hasn't done enough. I like him, but he hasn't done enough. He probably should be let go. GM for sure, but Dayball probably needs to as well.
I mean, here's the hard part: is if you want to get a new GM, who's going to want to be with Dable? They're going to think this is a damaged
Yeah,
good. I want my
that's fair.
chance. I want my
Hmm.
chance. I mean, you look at the Jaguars this offseason, right? And going through the head coach hiring process, and they almost didn't get Liam from the Buccaneers because he's like, listen, I'm not
Yep,
coaching with
that's a
that GM.
very good point. Hmm.
And I think you could say the same in reverse when it comes time
Yep,
to get a GM. Is
absolutely.
that no one wants to be with a damaged good, and
Hmm.
clearly Dable is a damaged good right now. I mean,
Yeah,
he's not the main issue. He is an
no,
issue, I think.
I can
Um,
agree 100% with that. Yep. And a lot
so
of times when you get a new GM, it comes with a coach. Like they would hire their
right,
guy.
right.
It's just in tandem. For example, 3 years ago now, whenever Minnesota fired their GM and coach, we hired Kwesi, and then shortly after he hired KOC. It was like boom, boom, and now they've been in tandem with each other. Kwesi hasn't been extended yet. He probably will be soon, but it's like a marriage. One comes with the other. When one's gone, usually the other's gone.
Yeah, I mean, there's times it can't happen, but you better be
Hmm.
sure that that's a really, really, really good person. Like
Hmm.
they're good at their job. It was just this other person totally threw us off in a bad
Yep.
spin. Um, and it's not a one for one. The Jaguars made the mistake. of holding on to their previous GM after they let go
Hmm.
Urban Meyer, and
Well, that was a
that
dumb
was
hire.
yeah. I mean, I think that yeah, Trent. Excuse me, I was thinking of his name. I was like, man, what's his name? When Trent Buck was let go by them afterwards,
Hmm.
finally this season. But I
Hmm.
mean, there was no reason to keep him when he was with Urban.
Yep.
Again, it's you're a damaged good. You thought this guy could actually win in the NFL. Why should we trust you? Like, why should we trust you moving forward?
Hmm.
That was such a colossal mistake to hire him. And maybe they're saying, because I think that was Urban there for 1.5 years. Am I remembering that right? Or is he there for, I think he
No,
was
I
there for
think it
one,
was a half year.
was it half of a year?
I think it was a half a year. Then they
Uh,
had an interim, and then Doug Peterson came in the next year. I think that's how it was. I don't think he lasted the full year.
oh yeah, you're right. Okay. So, gosh, didn't even make it through a
Hmm.
full season.
No, he
Just,
didn't. That's how bad that
uh,
was. It was
oh,
a disaster. I mean, he had off the field things going on too. It was bad. It
yeah,
was
it
just
was
bad.
bad. It was really bad. But bringing this back,
Hmm.
trying to keep the train on track here, trying to stay focused. I'm trying. I'm going to be better, Andrew. I promise. I always bring it back, but I just feel like that they held on to a GM and a head coach too
Hmm.
long, and it's backed him into his decision. I mean, let's put it this way. I think if I remember right, that Russell Wilson's got I think it's 10 million for sure and 21 million
I want to say it's 10
potentially.
and a half, something like that. But yeah, yeah, yeah. It's 10 and a half guaranteed.
So,
Yeah.
but that's a player you could sign. I mean, going back to the T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, that is a player. That is a player you can
Yep.
sign that now you cannot
That can
sign
help the
because you
team.
devoted those dollars. I
And what they're
mean,
probably going to do is they're probably still going to draft a quarterback in the draft. They're probably still going to draft Shadir Sanders or something. Which before, if they signed Jameis Winston to his 2-year, $8 million deal and then drafted Shadir Sanders, I'd be like, I like what you're doing here. Let Jameis play this year. Let Shadir sit and learn. Now next year it's his team. But you're signing Russ Wilson and Jameis Winston and then probably still gonna draft a quarterback because you kind of have to because your future isn't Russ Wilson or Jameis Winston. You could have got talent with that deal that Russell Wilson took from you with that contract, and then drafted Shadur Sanders or whoever's there at three, or trade up, whatever you're gonna do, and then he's your guy of the future. Okay, that makes sense. But oh, you got to go pay $10.5 million to Russell Wilson. Let's ride, or like you said, let's cry.
yeah, Giants
And
Nation,
it,
let's
it just
cry.
it just ruins your draft because now you spend a high draft pick on a quarterback. There's two quarterbacks ahead of them. It just it doesn't make any sense. They have so many
The
holes
only
to fill, and they filled it with a lot of money in their quarterback room.
the only way it would make sense to me, Andrew, is if they looked at this draft and honestly thought none of
Next
these
year,
quarterbacks are
yeah,
good enough
I
in the
can see
first
that.
round.
Yeah, maybe they're
And
thinking next year we'll draft a quarterback.
if that's the case,
Maybe.
then maybe. But it's hard because
Hmm.
Shane already. We've talked about this too, but passing on McKinney and Saquon Barkley, two
Hmm.
really bad moves. I said in the last podcast about Rossini or Diane Rossini and talking about the two strikes, right? He's on
Hmm.
two strikes.
Hmm.
I would not want to keep someone and going into next season already having two major strikes and then
Hmm.
expect them to actually make smart moves. It just,
Yep,
it's so unlikely. It's so,
I
when you
agree.
know, you know.
Uh-huh.
And actually, what's even better, and I love this phrase, is when you don't know, you know.
Hmm.
If you don't feel
Hmm.
confident, if you feel unsure, if you're feeling nervous, this isn't the guy. I mean, think about it for the Vikings. Has there ever been a moment, Andrew, as a Vikings fan with KOC as your coach, where you thought, "Is this guy the dude? Like, is he for real? Like, is this who we want?"
Hmm. Not a moment. We do want him to coach better in the postseason, but that'll come in time. He's had two postseason games so far. Both of them didn't coach all that great, but that'll come in time. He is a fantastic head coach. Love everything about him.
And and I want to just add one thing to it because I'm sure that there's someone that could listen to this podcast and say, "Well, wait a minute, what about Nick Sirianni in the 2023 season?" Well, my rebuttal to that would be, I always said back then, and I stand by it now, and I think the 2024 season proved it. get him better coordinators, he'll have a better team.
Mm,
And that's
mm,
exactly what happened.
mhm,
Got him better
mhm,
coordinators.
mhm,
It was a better team. He was able to thrive in his role of being like over the entire team, trying to help
mhm.
facilitate and make them a better team. And then having two new pieces that were both really, really young and really, really fresh was just not a good mix.
Mhm.
Sirianni was too green. Like he'd only been there for 2 years prior to that. So, um, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there in case someone's like, well, wait a
Yeah.
minute, what about Nick? So,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. And turn back to the Giants, I don't maybe, maybe they're looking at next draft and thinking we'll get our quarterback next draft. Let's just have Russell Wilson be our starter. Jameis Winston can back him up in case he gets hurt, and then we'll draft like a Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter or a stud at three. Have them be our cornerstone piece on defense going forward. And then we already have Malik Neighbors. Tyrone Tracy has some talent in him. He's shown some things. And then in the next year, we'll get our quarterback. If that's your viewpoint, I can get on board, but I don't trust that that's their viewpoint because they've shown time and time again they make the wrong decision.
well, and maybe building on this too, it's not just the money, but when Russell Wilson comes in and makes the quote, "I expect to be the starter," it's just loser vibes. It's just
Hmm.
you talked about McCarthy and how he wants to earn the job and not be given it
Hmm.
being given to him.
Yeah.
And to me, if you're Russell Wilson, you just had a horrible end of the year. It couldn't
Hmm.
it almost couldn't have gone worse. Maybe a couple more things
Hmm.
could have happened to make it worse, but that was really bad. I mean, that was a really bad
Yeah.
finish. You went cold into the playoffs and you even played more cold in the playoffs.
Hmm.
So why should you expect to be the starter? Like why should you feel like you've earned that right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how shiny that ring is. That ring is from way too long ago for people on this current team
What,
to care
10 years
about it.
ago? Something like that? It's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean it's been a really long time. And
Yep. Same with Rodgers. It's been a long time.
well, it just leaves the question, okay, how much was it Russell and how much was it the team? Like that's the part
That
that people will
defense
look
was
at.
so good. Oh, Russell Wilson had
And
such a good defense to lean on.
well, and how did the game against the Patriots end? It ended
In
with a
his
horrible
hands.
decision
Hmm.
by him as the quarterback. I don't care what people say with the cornerback cutting off the route. That is such a risky throw. And it was made so fast. The likelihood of a mistake happening was so high. I mean,
Hmm.
you'd have to believe, I mean, that better be AJ Brown on the other side of that throw, or JJ, or excuse me, Justin Jefferson, or Jamar Chase.
Hmm.
I mean, it better be someone that is like so good that their likelihood of letting you down is like 1%, 2%.
Hmm.
That was how it worked out though. Like that,
Hmm. They should have
he's
just
the
ran the
quarterback.
ball.
Well, and I mean, here's the other thing, right? Like in the playoffs, some people gave Hurt slack against the Rams when he would opt to a run over a pass because he's not showing his capabilities of throwing. Well, why make it hard? If you're reading something and you see there's an opportunity, you as the quarterback are the last person,
Hmm.
like line of defense, to get the right play call in. So go with the right play. Like you're at the line of scrimmage, you know that you're a yard away. Why not opt out of it
Hmm.
and say we're going to a halfback dive? We're going to a quarterback sneak. I don't care what the coach
Yep.
called. I'm reading the field. I'm seeing this. So
Hmm.
it is what it is. But I'm just not liking it. I'm not liking it, and I
Yeah.
predict this is going to end badly for the Giants and for Russell Wilson. And it's going to end with
Absolutely.
the head coach, the GM, the quarterback, all going
All
off
gone.
into irrelevance.
Yep. Yep. And who knows? Head coach and GM might get fired halfway through the season. It's
I mean, but
possible.
what a waste! What a waste!
Hmm.
It, yeah. Um, you always have those teams, those Andrew, those teams that you just
Hmm.
look at and go, "What are you?" Yeah. So
Hmm.
I'm glad I got to get that out there, but I just had to take a moment to share my frustration because I really thought the Giants turned a corner. I thought they learned their lesson, but
And then they showed who they really are. They are who
well,
we
and
thought they
it's
were.
exactly dentistry. That's right. But sometimes it's kind of funny because Um, People act like failure is the worst thing. Sometimes it's okay to fail. Sometimes it's okay to be let go and to turn
You
a new
learn.
leaf.
Hmm.
I feel like that's what they need right now. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's it for me on the Giant stuff. I'm done. I'm off my box.
Okay. Okay. Well, now let's dive into the world of speculation, recklessly speculating. So we had a little back and forth through text about a certain player that is still on a team and could be potentially moved and start for quarterback for a couple of teams. And then I was reading today that the Falcons still have not um, redone that deal for Kirk Cousins. Like they could do a simple reconstruction on that, and they could save like 25 million this year. It would kick the cap 5 years down the road, like all restructures do, but they can do it, save money this year, have money to spend because they're actually, I think they're still over the cap by like 11 million or something like that. But if they were to restructure him, that would show he's going to be on a roster because you're not going to trade him after you restructure because that's going to cost you more money. But if you don't restructure and you trade him, that team takes that full allotment of contract, 27 or 28 million that's due to him against the cap this year. And then that team gets it and you save that money instead. And then you don't have to pay him the rest of the time. So I think they're still looking to trade this guy. And I kind of think it's going to happen. And he has a no trade clause. And he doesn't want to make the same mistake he did last year of going to a shiny team and then they draft a quarterback. And he's like, what? I thought I was your guy. So he's going to wait till after the draft to see these teams who drafted a quarterback, who didn't. All right, Steelers didn't draft a quarterback. I want to go there so I can be the starter there. They have a good team. Trade me there. I'll waive my no trade clause to the Steelers. You guys work out a deal. So I think it's going to go along those lines. And we went back and forth on between the Steelers and the Browns, and I went on the Browns side, but I'm not saying that the Steelers doesn't make sense. It makes a ton of sense. They have a good team. He can get them probably to the playoffs and bounce out week one, the playoffs like he always does, loses the wild card. That's a Kirk Cousins thing. Um, but the reason why the Browns make sense is because of their coach, Stefanski. He was the offensive coordinator for Kirk Cousins when he first was with Minnesota. So there's a little tie in there. Um, and I don't know if they're gonna draft a quarterback at two. I think they're either gonna get the best defensive player or trade back because I don't see Cam Ward or Shore Sanders being that franchise quarterback leading you into the future. I just don't see it. Maybe they are. Could be wrong, but I don't see it, and I think NFL teams are thinking that same thing. And if you're not getting that at two, why waste that pick? Because that'd be a waste of a pick to draft Shedeur Sanders, and he's just a good quarterback, but not a franchise quarterback. That's a waste of that pick. Total waste. Why not just move back or take like a Carter or a Travis Hunter and then get Kirk Cousins in the building for a year or two, maybe build off of that, and then eventually that Deshaun Watson nonsense is going to be off your books, and your team can be competitive. Because Kirk Cousins, he'll make your team competitive in the regular season. That's what he does, and he'll be a year off, year removed from that Achilles injury. So that's my speculation. I kind of see it making sense for both sides, Browns or Steelers. I kind of lean a little bit on Browns. You are on the Steelers camp, but they both make sense. But the thing is, I do believe he is going to be traded after the draft because he's not gonna waive that trade clause until they see the team. Okay, that team didn't draft a quarterback. I want to go there. I want to start. I'm still getting paid no matter what because I'm still on this contract. I just want to play football. I don't want to be a backup. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. The part that I just keep coming back to in my mind that's tough is there's just not many options.
Yeah,
There's really
there's
not many
not.
options. And
Right now, there's kind of one, maybe two, and that's Steelers and Browns. It's about it. And Aaron Rodgers could change one of those at any time.
well, we'll see. If I'm the Steelers, go for Kirko over
Hmm.
Aaron. Who cares if
All
he doesn't
day,
have the
every
ring?
day.
Who
All
cares if he
day,
doesn't
every
have the
day.
ring?
hmm And it's not going to
So
cost you that high of a draft pick because that contract's super crazy. That's probably the highest it'll probably cost you, like a four,
I
realistically. He's
I would be
37 now. So,
I
yeah.
would be pinching the pennies. I would start at like a six. It,
Yeah.
I mean, you're not desperate. You don't need him. The
hmm
Falcons are looking to get anything they can off the books in terms of finances and getting draft
hmm
compensation. Like
hmm
you don't need him. The Falcons have no leverage, which is the crazy part to
hmm
me and how bad the situation is. That Kenny Pickett Eagles trade, I think this is a part of the process. The Eagles thought this could happen, and so their
Yeah.
mindset was, we'll take a little less from Kenny Pickett. Let's just get him out now. Let's get him out of the
hmm
building now, so that way we get something in return. So
hmm
we'll see.
Yeah.
It's
And the
interesting.
Browns aren't sticking with Kenny Pickett as their starting quarterback. We all know
No,
that.
I'm not saying that. It's just
Yeah.
tough as a team to trade for two quarterbacks in one offseason and give up two draft
Fair.
picks. That feels unlikely. I feel like the Steelers are in a better position to say,
That's
we haven't
fine.
picked up
Yeah.
anyone. Let's make the trade. But I do get the Stefanski connection. I still feel like that owner is still hopelessly hoping that
Yeah.
Watson somehow returns from the double Achilles grave and emerges as this incredible quarterback, which is not going to happen.
No. And honestly, I think they're hoping that they can find a loophole to get out of that contract. Because there are some loopholes, like off the field issues and like getting in trouble issues, which he's done with the law. They can get out of that contract. I think that's what their main hope is that they can rectify their very huge mistake, at least a little bit. We'll
Man,
see what
what a
happens.
trade.
I still think the Pittsburgh Steelers are drafting Jackson Dart at 21 or 22, wherever they're at. I think that's going to happen.
I like it. I could see the potential.
Yeah,
The part that'd be hard is how do you not have PTSD over the Kenny Pickett draft pick? Because that's what would be going
fair.
through my mind.
That's
And
fair. Yeah.
I think if I'm the Steelers, I'd be looking to make a trade back. Maybe stay in the first round, but trade back and see if
hmm
you can get towards the end of the back of the first round to still pick them up to get that first year, that fifth year option, but maybe recoup a
hmm
little bit of additional picks
Yeah.
to work with. But
Yeah.
depends on how the board falls. So that's the
Yep. It's got two teams. It takes two teams to tango.
yes.
If nobody wants that pick at 20 or 21, then yeah, you just gotta stick and pick, take a guy.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. Now I have one last little bit of speculation. This isn't gonna happen, most likely not, but I heard this and I thought, huh, if that happens, that'd be awesome. So to go with this comp pick formula that we keep going back and forth on, um, a lot of teams are kind of done right now picking signing free agents because they don't want to ruin what they already have kind of accumulated, which makes sense. Like right now for Minnesota, they have a third and a fourth, like tentatively in their pocket. No one knows for sure, but tentatively they have a third and a fourth. So they don't want to be signing any big name, big expensive guys right now because that'll take away that four. So that's why they haven't signed a backup quarterback, which Ryan Tannehill wouldn't affect that because he didn't play last year, so he's not on an expiring contract. So that would make some sense. But I think they're leaning toward Joe Flacco, so they're probably going to sign him after the draft. But I heard this speculation from one of my shows from fans that were saying that they heard this could be a thing, which you know what rumors are, but I just want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about it. It's an open space, and I think it'd be awesome. But there was a fan that was, I think, in Florida or something, somewhere along those lines, and they saw a guy wearing a Vikings hat that looked like an NFL player, and they asked him, "You play for the Vikings?" He said, "Not yet." He said, it's gonna be about 4 weeks." And at that time when she asked this guy, that was exactly 4 weeks till after the draft, when the comp pick formula no longer takes effect. And that individual player that this person was saying, I was speculating that they were talking to, was Asante Samuel Jr.
Mm.
I mean, there are two parts of that story that make sense. One, Daddy mentioned 4 weeks, and it just happens to be exactly 4 weeks of that day that the draft ended. And two, why is he still available? Because he is a really good player. Someone would have signed him by now. Someone would have said, yeah, he's probably worth a fourth round comp pick next year. Let's just put him on our team. But nobody's done that yet. I wonder why that is. We'll see. Again, I don't anticipate that it's happening. Um, I think he's going to get a big contract for somebody else. But if this works out, I won't be I won't be unhappy. I would love to see him in purple and gold because he's a really good corner. And we still have a small hole there. We got some players, but we definitely can use a stud to go along with Byron Murphy. So just saying, it's a story I heard. I really like the story. We'll see if it happens.
Yeah, because it works out the way you wanted to, Andrew. Makes you
Exactly.
already biased.
Exactly. Exactly. Just like trading for Sauce Gardner, which I knew wouldn't happen, but hey, if it happens, I like it.
I love it, Andrew. I love that you so willingly embrace and just bathe yourself in the rumors and possibilities that you like, but the ones that you don't like, yeah, just throw them right out the window.
hmm Yep, Aaron Rodgers.
True,
Nope, not
true
happening.
fan. No, I like it. I
hmm
mean, Samuel's waiting for a playoff contender. That's what I've come down to. He's waiting for a playoff
Yeah,
contender that's worried about comp picks. I just, why would he
yeah.
not be
And
signed by anybody?
why didn't the Chargers re-sign him? It wouldn't cost a comp pick because it's already on your team. Why didn't they re-sign him? I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird that he's still available. Some other guys are still available. I'm like, yeah, you came off an injury, you're older, or lots of other reasons, but why is he? He's like 26, 25, just
Yeah,
sitting there
he's young.
chilling. So
I mean,
I don't
I've
know.
heard more and more about like his like how physical he is or the lack thereof, and maybe some issues with man on
Hmm,
man coverage, like that
maybe.
stuff. But
Yeah.
to not even take a flyer,
hmm
either the numbers aren't matching up, he's waiting for a playoff team, or
He
something
thinks he's
else.
worth more than the contract he's getting offered.
It's possible. I mean, at this point, it's
Hmm
tough, but yeah, I could see it. I could see him going to the Vikings. It'd be a good move for them. I think that he has a lot of potential. And if you don't have to worry about losing your two comp picks, I mean,
hmm
and by the way, what a steal. You guys signed Daniel Jones halfway through the season and you got a flipping comp pick for him. What a schmuck move by you guys, but well done.
Quarterback Rehab University. That's what we call it. Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold. We were looking at possibly like a Zach Wilson, but he ended up signing somewhere else. Oh, more speculation for you. Now, this isn't like rumored to happen, but this is just,
Mhm.
if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. Next offseason, not this offseason, but next offseason, the Colts could just cut Anthony Richardson. They could say, you're not going to be our guy. And where could be a very smart spot for him to land to learn how to throw the football? Quarterback Rehab University. Come over to Minnesota, learn behind JJ McCarthy, KOC, recoup your career, and then in 1 or 2 years, go sign with someone else, be their starter, make a ton of money. We'll get another comp pick for you. We're gonna keep churning this through.
I like it. I like it.
hmm
Well, we'll see what the future brings. So I like that little nugget though, Andrew. Thanks for sharing about Asante. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what. And watch. This is what happens with our episodes. The day before they're released, these players sign with a different team. So that's what's going to happen. Asante Samuel Jr. is probably going to sign with like the Bengals tomorrow because we just trashed on the Bengals and now they're going to get a really good corner on in their secondary. Watch that happen now because we trashed them and I talked up Asante Samuel Jr. That's just how it's going to work.
Way to will it in the universe, Andrew. I like it.
Well, that's all I had. That's all the
Yep, that's
speculation
it
I
for
had
me,
for
man.
now.
So much for having a shorter, cover the extra stuff
It
episode.
it,
But
it never happens. We always go on
we just
side
had
tangents.
to
Yep. We
rip
had
into
a
the
lot,
the
a lot of things
Giants,
to talk
and
about. Hmm
yeah, yeah. So no, that
Yeah.
was good,
Well,
man. Good stuff.
yeah, and we got some mock drafts coming up here soon. That's going to be a lot of fun. Draft season's right around the corner. Then we'll start getting into the divisions, maybe talk about the teams individually. There's so much more to come. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We will see you next time.
We'll see everybody. Have a good rest of your week.